The views and opinions expressed in this content are that of a continuously evolving nature and are subject to change as humanity evolves into higher states of awareness.
What was your life like when you were a child?
Right, well, I was born out of wedlock, and in those days this was a terrible thing. Today it's the norm. And my mother was an actress and my father was an actor, and they were in rep, and they worked with a lot of the top stars today. I remember she talked a lot about Thora Hird, Diana Dawes, people like that. And so when I was born, in a theatre, she couldn't keep us, so we were put into a convent. My sister and I. We were put into a convent, which was a Nazareth House convent, and it was a very close convent. You didn't see people come in and out, not in those days. And the nuns that were in the convent had been children in the convent before they became nuns, and their nuns had been children before in the convent, way back to the 12th century. So it was very primitive, very cold. It was in the war and the war years, so there wasn't much food, and I was very mind controlled into fear of God and religion, and we were all sinners. So I was brought up like that, and a very mind controlled from a very early age. I was quite lucky. I came out when I was 9, and my mother married. She got married, and she had another 5 children. So I was the eldest of all the children, and because we never had any toys in the convent, my mother was pregnant when I came out, and she provided me with this little baby boy called David, who I absolutely adored. I loved him to bits, and he gave me lots of love. And even today he will say, "You were always cuddling me, Anne." And I said, "I know, because I loved you so much." And then she gave me Mary, who's quite famous, my sister Mary, in her own right, because she works for the UFO part of all of this. And her name is Mary Rodwell. And I was very obedient. And one of the things I remember, when I came out the convent, I was sent upstairs to my mother's bedroom to get something off her dressing table. And I stood at the doorway and I saw this picture of a girl moving. And I thought, I didn't know pictures moved. And I'm looking at this young girl, and it dawned on me that it wasn't a picture, it was actually me, because I'd never seen a mirror before. Because you would have been vain looking in a mirror. This would have been a big sin. So I'm looking at myself and I said, my God, I've got brown eyes. I didn't know I had brown eyes. And I was fascinated with this. Seeing myself and looking at myself, what I looked like. I was 9 years old. And, and then I went on my knees and I prayed, because I thought I'm being vain. And I was praying to God and I was saying, it's such a wicked thing that I'm doing. I'm looking at myself in the mirror. And my mother came up and I was sobbing. By this time, I was praying to God to forgive me for being so vain. And of course she laughed. And she said, you're not being vain, it's quite normal. You're going to see lots of mirrors and you're going to see your reflection in lots of things. And they were wrong. And I said, but how can they be wrong? So that was my first real thing. I was thinking, the nuns are wrong with certain things because they're supposed to be from God, And of course, when they did go into the convents eventually, they took all the children away. Very much so. But they weren't evil. They were just nuns. They were only doing what the nuns had done to them. So they thought they were doing the right thing. But I'm very grateful for that experience, because it taught me mind control, and it taught me how easily we can be manipulated as children to do things. For instance, I do have to say that if they'd have told me to lick the floor, I would have done it. If they'd have told me to put a bomb on myself and go and kill a Protestant, I would have done it. That's why these young men and women that are doing this in another religion, they're not evil, they're mind control from a very early age. And this is where religion, to my mind, is not very good. Parts of it is good, but there is a lot side to it that I think aren't very good myself. But then you must understand, one of the things I would like to say is take on board which gels with you, because this is my knowing, my truth. It may not be yours, and that's fine. We all have to find our own way of finding our own truth for ourselves, and this is something that I've discovered. So when I reached the age where my last beautiful daughter went to university, it was my last chick was leaving home, and I was devastated. I thought, what am I going to do with my life? You know, all my children have left now, and I'm on my own with my husband. And he was out most of the time because he's with his job. And then my neighbour died next door, and I went to the funeral. And I talked to this lady who's a neighbour, and we were talking about our aches and pains, because I'd been suffering with sciatica for many years. And I said, out of the blue, I don't know where it came from at the time, I said, I'm that desperate to get rid of this pain, I'd go to one of these funny people, a psychic healer. And the minute I said it, I thought, I can't do that. That's evil. They're evil, these people. Only Jesus can heal. But she turned round and she said, oh, there's one just moved across the road. She's just moved a few weeks ago. And she said to me, I'm a psychic healer. And she said, if you know anybody who's in pain, they can knock on my door and I'll give them some healing for nothing. She said, there you go. You can go over there and, you know, and have some healing. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to go, because I said I would do it. And if I see her, I don't go, she's going to say, how did you get on? And I say, well, I didn't go. I'd look foolish, because I didn't know this woman very well. And so I thought, well, I've got to go. Now, the only reason I found out about the psychic healer was because there used to be a programme on television called Kilroy, and they'd had healers on this programme. And so that's where it actually came from. And so I thought the next day, I was in real agony that night. So I had a shower and I got myself all ready to go across the road. And I started going at 11 o'clock. And I was so frightened to go to this woman that I couldn't step over the threshold. And so I kept making excuses why I shouldn't go. And I said, well, I'll just make a cup of tea and then I'll go. Or I'll just do that little job and then I'll go. So I eventually went at 6 o'clock. Now, the way spirit works is they don't, you know, they made me go through that fear. I had to go through the fear barrier to go to her. But also, she wouldn't have been in at that time. By the time I went, because she went out to work, she'd had her meal, she'd washed up, and when I went at 6 o'clock, she was free. They're very crafty, you guys, you know. You are being lifted up and put into different places, and you don't realise it. I realise it now, but then I didn't. And I went across, and I knocked on her door, and she came to the door, and I said, my name's Anne. I said, and I hear you're a spiritual healer. And she looked at me, and she said, are you in pain, love? And I said, yes. But I thought, I'm not going to show you where it is, because I didn't believe her one bit. I thought she would be working with the devil, to be quite honest. And so she took me into this little tiny room, and in the room was just a coffee table, a little light, a candle, and she had an old-fashioned, now, a tape recorder, and she was playing this music. And the music was, it was meditating music. I'd never heard it before, and it was in a wood. and there was, a waterfall and birds singing and wind rattling through the trees. And I thought it was wonderful. And I was in absolute agony. And she sat me in this chair and she said, I'm going to just do the healing on you. And she said, it won't hurt or anything. She said, I'm just going to bring the angels here and your helpers, my helpers. So I thought, okay. So I sat there, but I went into this music and I felt her hands on me. But she was standing a little bit away from me, and I thought, God, she's got long arms. But then I felt other hands on me, and this was amazing. Something happened in that room, and I could feel these hands, and I thought, is this my imagination? But and straight away she said, it's at the bottom of your spine. She said, you are absolutely in agony. And she started pulling the pain away from the bottom of my spine. And I didn't know what she was doing, but I could feel it going. And I went into this music, and I sort of went in sort of a trance state, I suppose. But after 20 minutes, the pain was still there, but it wasn't so severe. And she said, I'm going to go and make a cup of tea now. And she said, and I'll come back, and you just go into the music again. When it's ready, she said, because you've had enough healing now. And as she opened the door, the phone went. Well, in those days, you had to sit with the phone. It wasn't cordless. And they kept her away from that room, whoever it was, for 20 minutes. And in that time, I went back into the music, and the hands came back. And that's when it happened. I sort of had... It was like a doorway opening. All the fear of the convent and the Catholic Church disappeared. It was like they pulled all that fear that was at the bottom of my spine. It was all gathered there, you see. To me, this is what I feel. And I've been told this before, afterwards. But it was amazing what happened in that room. And then I came out of there, and it was 7 o'clock. And she made a cup of tea, and she sat with me, and we talked till 11 o'clock. And I was saying, well, what about this? What about that? And the things that she was telling me, I couldn't believe. I thought, why aren't we told all this? This is incredible. And, I said, how can you do healing when Jesus was the only one who could do healing? And she said something very profound. She said, Jesus said, everything I can do, you can do, and more. You are no different than me. We are all one. And she says, that's what we got taught. We are just like him. We can do. He had lives like you. Well, I don't know what she meant when she said that, but she said to me, all the things that we're talking about, I go to a thing called Kindred Spirit, and it's a gathering of people. We go every Monday night, and it costs you £2 to go in, and you get a cup of tea and biscuits with that. And you'll meet people there that will have all the answers, because every week we have a different speaker, and it'll speak on a different subject to do with this. And she said, it won't cost you anything. We go every week. So if you'd like, you can come with us. Well, yes, please. And I went, and my life changed completely. It was amazing what happened. I met these fantastic people. They were so interesting. And one of the things I noticed about them, when somebody left the room, they didn't pull them to pieces. They didn't care what car you had, or whether you were rich, poor, beautiful, ugly, whatever. They weren't catty, in other words. They weren't picking holes in people. And this is one of the first things I remember noticing, which I'd never experienced before. Somebody lent me a book. It was called The Teachings of Silver Birch. And it was a channel book, which I didn't know anything about channeling, but I realised that I was told this Silver Birch was a guide who came through a lady or a gentleman, I can't remember now because it was such a long time ago, and talked to her through her voice. And you could ask Silver Birch questions, and they can't lie. We lie, but they don't. And And one of the things that stuck me in this book, which I've never forgotten, is a man said, the fox, is it all right for me to kill the fox? Because the fox are killing my chickens. So Silverbirch said, certainly you can kill the fox with your gun when he can get a gun and shoot you. If he can't do that, you cannot kill the fox. So he says, but the fox is killing my chickens. And he said, God made the fox to kill chickens. He didn't make any mistakes. And he said, but in the wild, they have trees and they fly up into the trees to get away from the fox. But you put them in a little pen and say to the fox, there you go. And the fox gets in, he's going to kill your chickens. He said, you're doing the wrong things with chickens. Let them fly away up high. And I thought, gosh, that is so good. I pondered on that. That's what he said. Because it's not right that we are killing animals when they can't defend themselves, And so what I liked about all of this is every time I read something or did something, I pondered on it and thought about it. And it was real education for me. I felt before that I wasn't alive until I came into this. I only lived half a life. I lived with the material. I didn't live with my spiritual side. And religion isn't your spiritual side. It's prayers and it's dogma. And it's putting you in a little box and saying, don't question. But with all of this, it's question everything. You're not in a little box. You're free to think the way you want to think.
With the Silverbirch teachings?
Pardon?
With Silverbirch teachings?
No, this is... I'm talking about what I discovered. I discovered that with this, it wasn't like religion with the spiritual part of yourself. With learning to be mediums and all this sort of thing. We're not taught any of that. In fact, they tell you it's evil to go there. And I believed it, of course, very much so. Even though I walked away from it when I was 17, I was very religious up till then, because I was frightened of God. I really was scared of him. I was a God-fearing woman, And
so would you say religion teaches you that?
What religion does, it teaches you to follow a certain path, and you don't question anything. Why has you got people like the Inquisition, were killing anybody who wasn't Catholics, weren't Christians, and they're saying do not kill, and yet they were torturing and killing people. It was so hypocritical. When you think about it, you start seeing all the hypocritical things. I remember seeing, in the war, an old film, and it had the Vatican, and the priests were actually blessing the tanks that were going off to war. And I thought, but they're telling people not to kill, and there they are blessing and saying, do it in God's name. It was so hypocritical. But a lot of people don't question anything. They just accept. As you know, they say, well, it was in the papers, so it must be true. How many times you hear that? Or it's been on the television, it must be true. So, this is what I discovered. I'm 80 years old, and I have a lot of life to look back on, and people I've met and situations that's happened to me. And when I found out that we had reincarnation was a big shock. I was in 50s at the time. And up to then, I didn't realise that we'd had other lives. And it just put everything into perspective, that did. Because when you look back on your life and you see the ups and downs of life, life doesn't run smoothly, but you don't want it to run smoothly because that's how you learn from the knocks. You learn to love the people that hurt you. If you can do that, you've cracked it. Not to be resentful and to be hateful to people. Because if you've got everything laid on a plate for you, you're born... When I was a child, and I went to the films eventually, I used to think, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful to be a child with a film star, with a swimming pool and all that money and, and the pretty clothes and everything. But really, a lot of these kids, they haven't suffered, so they haven't learnt anything. The suffering actually teaches you things, funnily enough. I think. It's been my experience, anyway. Right, what I say to people is, after I've asked them about whether they love themselves, and they say they don't, I say, well, this is something that came to me, and I've given it to a lot of people, and I have people coming up to the mind when I go out, the mind bodies, and they say, you changed my life, Anne. I don't remember them. They said, do you remember me? Well, I meet so many people, there's only one of me, and so they remember me, but I don't always remember them. And they say, with those affirmations you gave me, I did them, and I just became a different person. And this is the affirmations that I give to people. Right, and it's important that you follow it to the letter. You get 2 pieces of paper, and on one of them you write everything you don't like about yourself. Nobody's going to see this piece of paper but you. But all your little things, like you may be a bit catty, or you may be a bit selfish, you might, but it's only little things. You're not like big things. Like for somebody who does really bad stuff, it would be, a bit different for them. But everybody could do it. I think if they did this in prisons, the people would come out a bit different. Yes? So, no, as I say, nobody knows yourself but you. You can live with somebody, you can have children, but you've all got little things in your mind that you may say, I would love to go to Egypt and look at the pyramids, but you don't tell anybody. There's little things like that. You may love avocados and other people may not, but that's something that is part of you. You like to eat avocados. So take a long time doing this. And then on another piece of paper, put everything you like about yourself. Whether you may be generous and kind, considerate, all this sort of thing. And then with those 2 pieces of paper, you must burn them together. You need the smoke. You've got to burn them. Now, this is where the magic happens. On another piece of paper, right? Now, this does take a long time to think of it. But you must put the I am before you, because I am is the God part of you. So you say, I am love. I am considerate. I am kind. I am understanding. I'm joy. I'm full of love. I'm full of happiness. You must put the I am before. But I am wealthy. You'll always have enough money. I am healthy. I am considerate. I am kind. There's so much of it you can put down. I am understanding. I am tender, but I am strong. Yeah, I'm intelligent. I'm magnificent. So if you do that, and there's a long list, if you start really thinking about it, there's a lot you can put in there. And then with that piece of paper, you say it to yourself for 30 days, and you will become it. It's like a computer. If you put garbage into a computer, you get garbage out. If you put garbage into your computer, yourself, you'll get garbage out. For instance, if you say, I'm always in the wrong crew, you will be. If you say, I never win anything, you won't. Because the universe is giving you what you want, what you're saying. Yes? This is the garbage. But if you say, I'm always in the right queue, you'll always be in the right queue at the beginning of it. If I'm always, lucky, you will be lucky. Some people, they say you're always lucky because they know they're going to be lucky. They manifest it. Now, we are manifesting gods, right? And I'm going to tell you a story, true story. 2. There was a man who was an engineer. And when they first started to freeze things, they did it with peas. And they did it in America. And they used to collect the peas and put them in these big freezer lorries. And they would go off in the night, because it was America, and travel through the night. And this engineer had left his coat in the freezer lorry that he was mending. And so he went into the freezer lorry and somebody shut the door on him. And he couldn't believe it because he banged on the door but nobody could hear him. They started the engine and he was in a freezer. And he knew that he wouldn't survive the night in this freezer. So he sat there and it went. He shouted but nobody heard him. Now, luckily enough, he found a little notebook in his top pocket of his shirt and a pen. So he started to write to his wife. And every now and again he was saying what was happening to his body. So he was explaining to her how he was getting cold, what was happening. He got ice in his hair and all that sort of thing. Now, when they got to the other end and they opened the freezer lorry, the people couldn't believe what they saw. Because there was this man frozen solid with ice in his hair and everything, but it was broken. He got into the wrong freezer lorry. He created it with his mind. And the only reason they knew he created it was because of the notebook. Yes, that's a true story. That's how powerful we are. We can create anything. We can create love. We can create hate. We can create pain. Yes, we can create anything. So why not create all the good stuff? I am love, I am considerate, I am kind, I am magnificent.
We are the creators of our own reality.
Exactly. This is what we are. Now, there was another lady, and I heard this one on Woman's Hour in the 70s, about then. And I used to listen to the Woman's Hour every day, before television, even in the afternoon. And this woman, when she was a little girl, she had the gift of playing the piano. She didn't need to be taught because she'd done it many times before, in other lives, obviously. And she was fantastic on the piano. But she lived in a council house and she didn't have much money. So the parents couldn't afford for her to have a piano. When she got older, her dream was to have a grand piano, rosewood grand piano. But they're very expensive and she couldn't afford it. But she was very fortunate because where she lived, there was a shop that sold all pianos in a shopping centre. And she would go into the shopping centre and they allowed her to play Beethoven and all the wonderful music for nothing. They didn't pay her anything because she needed to keep her hands going, yes? So what she did was she went in, she played the piano, brought the customers in, and she was getting something from it and they were getting something from it, right? Now one day she's looking in the paper and she sees a competition for a grand piano, exactly what she wants, make everything. Well, she's so thirsty for it, she wants it so much that she fills it in, she'd never done one before, and she sent it off. And she followed it all the way in the post, them opening it up, winning the competition and having it delivered and polishing it. And everything that she thought of happened. And she won the grand piano. And for 5 years, she did every competition and she won everything, everything. She won houses, cars, holidays, everything, because she created it. And in the end, they banned her from any competition because she was winning everything. Nobody else was winning.
And this was just through the power of belief.
Creating it.
So
Belief and creating it, yeah.
Using the law of action.
Yes, the law of attraction. Yes, and everything. There's a famous, watch The Secret. It tells you how to do it. It's wonderful.
People watch these things and then they try and they don't succeed.
Well, because they don't believe enough. They don't work at it long enough. You need 30 days to do that other one. If you're in a really bad state, then you need 100 days to do it. It all depends. It's not always easy to love everything, even the bad stuff. But the bad stuff is there because you need the yin and the yang. How are you going to learn if you come into the world and everything is put in front of you? You know, like the royal family, they don't have to do anything. I mean, I heard the other day that Prince Charles even had his toothpaste put on his flipping toothbrush by somebody. I mean, whether it's true or not, but I mean, if the poor man can't even do that, and what a sad life he's got. And you think, well, what a fantastic life, but I don't think they do. It doesn't good if you don't have a few of the knocks in life, don't you think?
Yeah.
If you can live with somebody who'd really give you bad time and you can still love them, you've cracked it. And that person will then start loving you back because you're bouncing it like a ball. But if you give them hate and resentment and fear and everything, what are you going to get back? Yes? So everybody's your teacher and you're your teacher yourself. You've arranged it for those people to be in your life. I mean, I'll give you an example. When I was 17, I worked with a girl called Winnie. I would never remember Winnie if it wasn't for this. And I met Winnie, where we worked together, and she wanted to go to this dance, which was a jazz thing, and I hate jazz. It doesn't work with me at all. And in those days, it was these dresses. It was in the 50s. And, they came up like this when you sat down with all the taffeta underneath, and you had high heels and stockings. And every girl wore high heels, and when you're standing all day, you don't want to put high heels on at night time. And of course, I didn't have the money to go anywhere, and I had to stand at a bus stop in the freezing cold. I think it was about February time. And I didn't want to go to this thing. But she fancied this young boy. He said he was going to be there, and she couldn't go on her own, because in those days, a woman didn't go into these sort of things on her own. You couldn't go into a pub on your own, this sort of thing. And so she needed someone to go with her. And from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, she bugged me. Oh, please, I want to go to this dance, and what have you. And she went on and on and on. In the end, I said, okay, I'll go. Just leave me alone. I'll take you. So I went. And we're standing at the bus stop. Freezing cold. And along comes this car. Now, in those days, you could get as many people in a car as you wanted to. There was no law and it was fun. Not like today with all these rules and regulations. Of course, it is sensible. I can see that now. But in the days when you're young, it was fun. And I sat on this young man's lap. If Winnie hadn't bugged me to go to this flipping dance, I would not have my husband, my children and my grandchildren. So it was meant. It was all arranged beforehand. He was at the dance. I never saw him. I sat on his lap, and that's how I met my husband 60 years ago.
These opportunities come along, but you have to make the decision to do it. So
well, when you look back, you can see how you have done that. Yeah. You can see the recipe of your life and what you've done, and you can see all the little bits where if that didn't happen, that wouldn't have happened, So it's like stepping stones. People come into your life for a few minutes, maybe, and it's a stepping stone. But it changes your life because you met that person. They may have said something to you. They may lend you a book or something. Yes, they may lend you the newspaper. You open it up and you see an advert. If you hadn't met that person, then you get the good job. It works like that. When you start looking at your life and reading it, we're not taught to read our lives. So that's what I get people to do. Think about your life. Think about the people. Think about your family. Yeah? And learn to love everything, because everything vibrates with love. And if you love it, it will give it back. So if you've got somebody giving you aggro, love them. And they will change towards you. Because you're bouncing it off them, they've got to bounce it back. But you've got to believe it. And it doesn't happen maybe straight away, but keep doing it and it will happen.
So it's like vibrational frequencies.
Yes.
And if you give out a vibrational frequency,
yeah,
the other person's going to resonate with that frequency and it's going to affect them as well. So.
Yes. And what happens is, for instance, if you work with love and you work with sincerity and with goodness and you work with your guides, they give you prezzies. And one of the big things that happened to me, which is I've never come across anybody else this has happened to, and I have asked a few people, but I had very bad sciatica at the bottom of my spine. And that's what brought me into this to begin with, but it never completely went away. Even though I had the edge off it a lot, and the angels did that in that room, I still had a niggly thing there because I needed to still have that. And then I had what is known as a shiatsu one day. And the lady who was doing it, she said, oh God, she said, I can't believe this. She said, they're showing me your etheric body. You know, you've got 7 bodies. And she said, I can see your etheric body. And in your etheric body, you've got a spear sticking out the bottom of your spine. You've got a knife halfway up your back, and you've got chains on your feet. And she said, and there's angels in this room, and they're all around us, around you in a circle. And they're telling me they're taking the spear out. So I could feel it. I mean, the pain I was in, and they've took the spear out. And then she said, you've got a big hole in the bottom of your spine, and it's all festered, it's all yellow and very red. And they've got a red hot poker, and they're putting it into it. I mean, I can tell you the pain was incredible. And they said to me, to this lady, I won't say who it was, but they told her that they were going to leave it now because they would come back to do more work on it. They took the knife out. I never even felt the knife coming out. But they turned around and they said, they're telling me that you've got to take the chains off your feet. Imagine them coming off your feet. And the chains are saying, they're talking to me and they're saying, we come from Mother Earth, everything does, and we do not like to harm anybody. So when you make something that harms animals or the earth or a human being, this is not what we were put here for. So this is the chains that harmed people. So for instance, you make a bullet, you're not supposed to make that material into a bullet, in other words.
Oh, right.
Yes. So I then had to change it into something nice, which I did. And they were very pleased with that. So that was one of the things that taught me about thinking about the toy with the child. Giving it love, it will give it back. Yes?
So say if you create the physical matter and you make it into a bullet, for instance, because of the destruction that bullet will...
Yeah, because it's harm. It's killing somebody.
Will create the bad karma.
Yeah, well, it's killing somebody. It's not meant... we shouldn't kill. So any material that kills, if it or does harm... So if you make, say, a drug and it harms somebody with a side effect, when you can make the same medicine from Mother Earth that Mother Earth doesn't give you harm. Yeah? Yes? You use herbs instead of drugs. Okay. So, anyway, she'd never seen this before, but she knew somebody who could look into the etheric body. So we went along, and she never told her this. And she got me to lie down on a couch, and she said, would you look into her etheric body? And she said, oh my God, you've got a great big hole in the bottom of your spine. And she said, you must be in agony. She said, it's festering, it's really bad. This was the next day. So we knew that it was true. So anyway, eventually, a few days later, the angels came back, and over weeks, and took a long time for it to heal. But eventually, they even sewed it up with an eagle thread. But that now, did I put that spear into somebody else, and that was my karma? I don't know. But, what you do to somebody else in another life, you've got to sort of find out and be cured of it. Yes? For instance, if you say to your teenage kids, don't put a cigarette to your mouth, then you'll never smoke. But if they do and they start smoking, it's their free choice. So You can give advice to people, but they don't always take it.
So that is the law.
They've got to learn the hard way. Yeah. Right. Well, you wanted to know, Lee, how I got to know my purpose, my mission, what I've come here for, which we've all come here with a mission, with a gift. Some people it's crystals, some people it's healing, or it could be, there's all sorts of different healings. I think my healing is love, getting people to love themselves and to appreciate what they are. Yeah, because if you like yourself and you love yourself and you do those affirmations, you start liking, because you change to that, and you start liking yourself a lot better. Because we're thrown at us, you're not supposed to like yourself. You're supposed to be miserable. Then they can control you. So once you get over the control business, know what they're doing, and that's what's so nice about coming into this, is you're learning the bits that they don't want you to know, the hidden knowledge, and that's what I love, is anything that's hidden. So when I came into this, I got this thirst for knowledge, and I started to read all the different books, and I started asking myself to begin with, because I wasn't going to anything then. I was only going to this Kindred Spirit once a week, and they were doing all the talking. I didn't do any talking. And so I was talking to myself in this room, and I was saying, what about this, what about that? I think it could be this. And then I'd start getting bangs around the room. And I started getting it on the radiators. And I thought, gosh, what's happening? Why am I bang? There's something wrong with the radiator. And the television. They used to bang on the television. And my husband, when I used to tell him about what I'd read in the books and things, and he noticed it, and he said, there's something wrong with that radiator because it keeps banging. And then one day a lady came round, and she was spiritual, and it happened, and I said, I think my radiator's going wrong. She said, no, that's spirit. I said, what do you mean that's spirit? She said, spirit. She said, they're answering you. She said, you're asking a question in your mind or whatever, and that's how they're answering you. That's your clairvoyance, And from that moment on, I realised this was true. And also, I said, sometimes I have this burning desire to know something, and I get up and I get a book out, and it's there. And she says, that's how they're doing it with you. They're not talking to you. You're not clear, you're clairsentience. You're not clairvoyant. You can't do the tarot because that's not you. You are capable of it, and you may come into it later, but at the moment, they want you to absorb all this knowledge, and that's why you're going crazy with all the books, and you're finding it fascinating. It's like food for you, and it's leading you, isn't it, from one thing to the other? I suggest it is. It's like stepping stones, and it's not boring. In fact, I learn something new every day, and I can honestly say, even to this day, I'm learning something every day. There's no end to it. That's why it's not boring.
I've noticed that myself, actually.
Yeah.
The universe will give us signs, and I'll often hear a siren in the background.
Yeah.
And that tells us I'm on the right track with something.
Yes. Well, some people see numbers or colours. They see a colour. And so they do help you, but you've got to be able to read the signs. Yes, if you can't read the signs, you won't see it. So learn to read the signs. For instance, when I did my spiritual room, I bought a pink carpet, but I bought this wallpaper for the walls. But I didn't think it was the right wallpaper. And I happened to go to France to visit my son. And on the way I said, I need the colour for the walls. And I kept seeing this yellow. And I saw this yellow everywhere. Even on little bricks on the side of the road. And we were out in the countryside, but cars would come when I was thinking about it. Opened my eyes, and there was a yellow car. And we were going through a wood, and it was round a corner. And I said, okay, if it really is this yellow that I need to put in there, the next thing that comes round that corner, if it's got any yellow on it, I'll know it's true. And round the corner came a great big lorry, and it was yellow from front to back. So I went to change my when I got back, into the shop, and I took the old wallpaper, and I said, could I change it? And I walked to this wallpaper, and it had the pink of the carpet and this yellow. And it was perfect for that room, because the yellow brought the sunshine into it, and the little bit of pink was in the carpet. And so they helped me by doing that. And they were teaching me, they were saying, have faith, Anne. We're going to show you something. And it was a long journey from Paris to where he lived. It was about 3 or 4 hours. And, so that was one of the things that I remember.
One of the things I've noticed is that things will come round 3 times to show you that it's real. Have you ever experienced that?
Yes.
It'll bring something 3 times.
Yeah. It's amazing. And but one of the things I've discovered with me, because you've got to discover what your purpose is. So I sat and asked and everything. And with what I was doing and my recipe for the various things, I realised that I am a light worker. I am somebody who opens people up to this. A lot of people are looking for it, but they don't know where to find it.
Yeah.
Everybody is going to be waking up. Doesn't matter who you are, something's going to happen. You're going to wake up, because we're going from the 3rd dimension into the 5th. And it's very important to find your purpose, to find that part of you. But we are mind controlled not to find it. That's why they killed the indigenous people, because they were doing this. If you really think about it, why did they have to kill the Indians and the Aborigines when they had nothing? And they killed them by the thousands, they said, there's the land. It doesn't belong to us. It belongs to God. All they had to say was, okay, we'll have the land, and they would have given it to them. And, it's because they had the knowledge that they didn't want, I think, and I may be wrong, but I think they didn't want the Europeans to learn their language and to learn how to do what we're doing now. But they can't stop it, because now it's growing and growing all over the world, everywhere.
And shamanism's coming back in as well.
It's all coming back.
Plant medicines.
That's right. It's all happening, and it's meant to happen. And so when you find it, and maybe you were drawn to crystals, you could be drawn to all sorts of things. It could be just philosophy. It could be paintings. It could be music. Healing music, all sorts of things. But when you find it, you run with it. You get excited, and it's like getting a pair of shoes that are comfortable, and you love your shoes to wear those particular ones. So this is what happened to me, and I discovered that I could talk to people about things after 5 years. I went to the Mind Bodies, and I just sat in the restaurant and started talking to people, and I was able to help them. And I remember the first one that it dawned on me what was happening. It was at Market Raisin. It was a long time ago. And I went with my husband, and I met this old lady. She was probably my age then. I looked at her as very old at the time. And I was a good 20 years younger than her then. And I started talking to her. And Mike said, well, I'm going off for a talk. Because these Mind Bodies, there's wonderful talks that you can learn things from, and people are expert in certain fields. And so he went off, and he came back, and it was an hour later, and he said, oh, are you two still talking? And then he said, well, I'm going to another one. And he came back, and we were still talking. And the old lady said to him, she said, I've just had the most wonderful conversation with your wife. She knows so much. And I thought, I don't know anything. What's she talking about? But she gave me the confidence, that woman, to do that. And I've had a lot of things happen to me at Mind Bodies. I had a lady come in once, and she came off the street. And she'd been to the market next door, and it was in a little memorial hall, and it was Saturday afternoon, and she was going home to an empty house, and she saw, on the way home, a sign for this Mind Body, and she thought, oh, I wonder what that's about. So she went in, and she'd never been to anything like it before, and she saw all the stalls, the crystals, and all the beautiful stuff that they sell. And of course, it only cost her a couple of pounds to go in. And she came to the restaurant, and she sat down with me, and she said, what's all this about? And I started telling her various things, and she turned around to me and she said, "Can I share something with you?" She said, "I've never told anybody this, ever." And she said, "But I want to tell you." And I said, "Okay, what would you like to tell me?" She said, "Well, you won't think I'm crazy, I hope." And I said, "I shouldn't think so." And she says, "Well, when I was a little girl," she said, "I used to have these little blue people used to come and visit me in my room. And she said they used to pop their head around the door and wave to me, and then they would come in. And when I told my mom about them, she said, you mustn't tell anybody about that sort of thing. They'll think you're ill and they'll take you away from us. You know, you must keep it to yourself, you know." But she said they're wonderful, they love it. She said, "No, it's your imagination, you mustn't say this." So she said, I learnt not to tell anybody. She said, and she said, they gave me so much joy, and they weren't frightening at all. I said, "Well, I think they're Arcturians that you're seeing." And she said, "Do you believe me?" I said, "Oh, yes." I said, "It's quite common." "You're joking." I said, "No, it's quite common." She says, "Well, I actually still see them." She said, "They come and visit me." She said, "And we talk and everything." And she said, "And I'm not crazy." I said, "You're not crazy, darling." And then I told her about my sister Mary. And I said, I gave her Mary's tapes and things. I sent them to her. And so...
Who are these beings?
The Arcturians. I think they're the Arcturians. From a planet called the Arcturians. And they're apparently they are small and blue. And they're very loving. They're very high beings. When I've been in circle, I've been in a circle for 5 years with Judith. We had a lot of outer worlders came and talked to us. It's another big subject. And the first one that came through, they said, "Why are you humans so savage? Why are you still spilling blood on Mother Earth? You're not supposed to do this. God has given you this most magnificent planet. And what are you doing to it? Look at how you're destroying it. You take something from the earth, like oil, and you put it into a car, which gives pollution into the air, and you're breathing it. The oil is there for a reason. It should be kept in the earth. If you take your heart and put it in your leg, it's still in your body, but it isn't in the right place. It's not going to do your body any good. Yes? This is what you're doing with Mother Earth. You're not supposed to move things. A Native American Indian, they said, wouldn't even pick up a stone and move it, because the stone is supposed to be there. What right do I have to move that stone? Yeah? And this is what this one, and then it told us off, and I was there. I was crying. I've never experienced like this before, and I thought, it's true. What are we doing to each other, and what are we doing to this planet and to the animals? What right do we have to do that? And that beautiful being, came through and talked to us like that. And then it said, "Okay, we'll make it a bit lighter now," and it came through and said, and started talking wisdom and what have you, and it was wonderful. But I never forgot that first one that came through. And, there's a big subject with that 5 years I did with Judith.
So do you think this is the reason aliens don't come and let us know that they exist? Because we're not ready yet?
They're frightened of us. They're not. We're the monsters. We'd kill them.
Yeah.
There are ones that are not very good. But if you walk with light and you have free choice, you are powerful. You're more powerful than you realise. A dark will not come near you. One of the things I would recommend for everybody to do is to put light through them every day, because you build your light body that way.
And light is the highest vibration.
Yes, you got suns beyond suns, and you ask for the light from the central sun to come through, the Christ energy to come through the top of your head, through your chakras that are out in the universe, and come through to the top of your head and through your body, so it hits all your chakras. I imagine my body to be made of glass, and I'm putting liquid into it, So, and I fill it my head with liquid, taking it through my third eye, to my throat, to my heart, to my solar plexus, and the one below that, and then the ground, the one in between your legs, and then take it down and then put roots into Mother Earth. Imagine roots going into the earth and putting the light through to the centre of the earth to feed the earth with pure love of light from the central sun. That's feeding the earth. She loves it, Mother Earth. And then you bring her energy up through you, back up. So if you do that and then you put it around yourself, that's building your light body. And we're turning into crystallized solar light bodies. That's why we're changing. That's why we're living longer. That's why babies are not staying babies for very long. They're developing very, very quickly. Young ladies are becoming like the blood is flowing inside them, some of them at 10 years old instead of 18. Everything is getting changed. Our bodies are changing. Little boys think they're little girls. Little girls think they're little boys. It's meant. It's more. It's natural.
So everything's becoming more in unity.
Yes, we're changing our bodies. It's changing to go into the fifth dimension. That's another subject. We're turning into crystallized solar light bodies. That's why we're changing. That's why we're living longer. That's why babies are not staying babies for very long. They're developing very, very quickly. Young ladies are becoming like the blood is flowing inside them, some of them at 10 years old instead of 18. Everything is getting changed. Our bodies are changing. Little boys think they're little girls. Little girls think they're little boys. It's meant. It's more. It's natural.
So everything's becoming more in unity.
Yes, we're changing our bodies. It's changing to go into the fifth dimension. That's another subject.
Can you tell us more about the fifth dimension and what abilities do you think this will bring?
Well, we're told that every 26,000 years, the earth changes. The dinosaurs were here at one time. We had the flood. There's been signs. Atlantis disappeared, yes? There's pockets where there's things are known. And a lot of the different cultures, and I mean, you can get a lot of this on YouTube now, that people are finding, archaeologists and things, finding all sorts of things. And proof about various things, and of course about the aliens, this sort of thing. And so every 26,000 years, I say, we change, and the millennium, they said, well, the earth is going to come to an end. It wasn't actually, it was a rebirth. It's a beginning, not the end. And so we're moving our vibration, and we're waking up to all of this, so that our bodies will change and our spirits will change to be able to go into the fifth dimension. Now, I don't know whether it's true. I've read it. It's been channeled and all sorts of things. It's come from a lot of different directions. But if you don't bring your vibration up to the fifth with love, you will die and go on to another earth, and you will start all over again, primitive. So if you want to be like that, this is what's going to happen. But the people on this who are going to the fifth, this planet is going to go into the fifth dimension. It's going to change. That's why you've got the earth changes. We're not doing it. It's coming from the universe. The whole universe is changing. It's going into a different section. And we're at the tail end of it. This is what they say is happening. Take on board which gels you. You probably think, oh, it's a load of rubbish, that. Yeah. But start thinking about it. Start looking at what's happening. All the chaos, they said, the chaos is going to happen beforehand. And look at the chaos as what's happening on this planet. Why are people moving from one part of the world to the next? Why are we all mixing in this country? All the different nationalities. We'll all be breeding with each other. So we will become, there'll be none of this discrimination, because we will, we'll be like Heinz 57 or whatever it is. We're all mixing our bloods together. It's meant for them to come. It's meant for this to all happen.
Right.
Yes?
Yeah, interesting.
Yes. When you start really thinking about it, what I would suggest to people is turn off the tellies, turn off everything, turn off these ruddy machines, and sit and think. Go within and think about things, ponder on something, and start working it out, what it is. Let's face it, if you were making a machine, you've got to sit and think about it. Anything that's been made, you've had to think about it to get it to, to be, for it to work, for it to manifest.
Yeah, imagination.
Yes. I mean, at the time, I think one of the most incredible inventions is the telephone. Now, I think there was about 5 people who were thinking of it at the same time. One of them did it.
I want
so...
to ask you about, do you think that ideas and inventions are a signal out there waiting to be picked up by individuals who
No,
are ready?
they've come already with it. They've been born with it, and they've switched on the light to do it. They have to do it. But they don't always have the funding. They're stopped. Nikola Tesla was a prime example of him. He came and he was a great inventor. He made marvellous progress. But he was poor. He came from Yugoslavia. If you look up Nikola Tesla and his works, and it was all taken off him because he didn't have any money. He wasn't American either. Other people took the credit for what he did. I mean, there's been people who have made cars now that run on water, but they're not allowed to do that because of the oil, because of money. See, the thing with Nikola Tesla, he gave us free energy, but you can't make any money with free energy, so they wouldn't allow it to happen. And it's all to do with money. Money is terrible. It really is the worst thing that's on this planet, because there's too much. There's too many people at the top earning a lot and people at the bottom getting nothing. And they're the ones that are feeding the people at the top, so the ones that are very, very rich.
So I think that money is a tool, but it can be used in a good way or
Oh, yes, it can, definitely.
Too many people are using it in a bad way, and that's what's causing a lot of the problems we see in the world at the moment.
And again, they say that, well, this is mine, I want more.
Yeah.
If they put it in banks and things. But you can't take it with you. As a guide came through one day and he said, you can't even take an eyelash with you. What you take with you is what your deeds and how you thought and what you did with yourself on this planet. So when you come out of your body, you actually see, like a video, all that you've done, all the hurts or the nice things you've done, and you will see the pain of something, I mean, there's something that happened in history. I mean, this came to me one day when I was pondering, but there were 2 people many, many years ago, and they were best friends, and they had a row one day, maybe over a woman, I don't know, but we'll call A and B. So A killed B in a rage. So the family of B killed somebody in A. So somebody in A killed somebody in B. That started the mafia. So A threw the stone in the water, and the ripples of that stone, even today, you've got the mafia. And all the people that have been caught in that web of the mafia, through drugs, through all sorts of things that the mafia have done, yes, because one man killed another man. If he hadn't have killed, you would not have the mafia, and all those people would not be involved. So be careful what you do in life. Even by saying something bad can create something in a family that can fester into other things, which can carry on to the next generation.
Yes, it's like a ripple effect.
Exactly.
Which falls in line with creating your own reality again.
Exactly.
And the law of karma, and the law of action,
So,
and the law of cause and effect.
Yes. So you take responsibility for your own actions. So look at your day each day and say, have I done nice today, or have I harmed anybody, even with a look? Or have I given somebody a smile, a stranger, that lifted them? Even going up to a stranger and saying, you look fantastic in that colour, you look really beautiful. I do it all the time. If I see something like that, because I know about colours. I say, that's really your colour. You look fantastic in that colour. And people love it, you know. They say, oh, do you really think so? I said, yes. I said, I bet you like this colour as well. And I get a conversation going with them.
And that can change their whole day.
Absolutely. I'm here to make people happy. And that's what we're here for. We're here to create happiness for everybody. Not give them fear, not control them. But everybody's free, even if they're doing something wrong, leave them. That's, you know, who am I to say you're doing something wrong?
Yeah.
You know, I've been there. I've done that in other lives. I can't judge you if I've done it myself, because I know I have, because I've learnt not to do it. If you can't kill a fly, you've learnt not to do it. You'll never do it again. You say, I would have it on my conscience. It's not my nature to do that.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Right, I would like to talk to you about what I am and what has led me to. When I met a psychic, very powerful psychic, she said to me, you are the yellow pages. You will pick up things for other people that they need and give it to them, like a library. And she said, I'm getting the Pied Piper with you. And they said, if you know the story of the Pied Piper, there was, I think it was in Germany, but they had all these rats. And they wanted to get rid of the rats, but they couldn't get rid of the rats. So they heard about this magic man who had a flute. And they persuaded him to come to get rid of the rats. But they said they would pay him a lot of money. Now, he blew his pipe, his flute, and all the rats followed him, and he put them into the river. He went back for the money, but they didn't pay him anything, because they got rid of the rats. And they laughed at him. So he turned around and he said, you are unworthy to have the innocent children. So he played his pipe and he took the children to the light. And they said, that's what you will do. You will take people to the light. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And they said, well, you will know one day. And they said, you're like a lighthouse. And, you know, if you've got a light, the moths will come to the light in the dark. This is what you will be drawn to you, people who will need the lights so that you can give them the light, show them how they can open up to their light. They said, this is what you will do. Well, I didn't know what they were talking about. I wanted to do tarot and all this sort of thing at the time. And over the years, I've realised that I started picking things up for other people and giving it to them. And so I'll give you a story of, I went to America. Now, I sat in a circle with a lady, and everybody in the circle did something different. And it was a closed circle, and it was done in the dark, and it was very powerful. It was a great honour to be in this circle. And there was one lady there, and I went to America, and I went to this. It was a sign, and it said, go down here, and there's Red Indians there, down there. It was a little complex of Red Indians. So I went down, and they had a shop. Now, they had their own book. You couldn't get this book anywhere else but in their shop, and things that they made. And so I bought this book, brought it back. Now, I'm not into the Indians. I wasn't into the Indians. I put it in the bookcase. 2 years later, I was dusting my books, and my eyes fell on it, and I said, I've got to give this book to this lady. So I took the book out, and of course it was to do with Indians. And I thought, well, that's that book I picked up in America. So I went with the book when I went to the circle, and I said to her, I've got to give you this book. And she said, I don't read, Anne. She said, no, go give me a book. She said, I've got 2 horses, and I'm a manageress of a petrol station, and I don't have any time to read books. I said, well, all I know, darling, is you need this book. So the next week when I went, she says to me, How did you know? How did you know? And I said, what do you mean, how did I know? That book, why did you give me that book? I said, I don't know. I said, where did you get it from? Well, I told her. She said, well, I'm going to tell you something. She said, whenever we open up in Circle here, there's an Indian on a hill, on a course, and he gallops down to me, and he gives me all these symbols. She said, and all those symbols are in that book. How did you know? And I said, I don't know. I had to go to America to get that book for you, you know, because you weren't going to go and get it. So that is what's happened to me with various things like that, and that's
synchronicities.
I am a messenger. I am sent to places to pick things up for other people.
Yeah.
Yes, and I don't know I'm doing it, but I knew it wasn't for me. I just put it away because I'm willing to do it. So I do it, and you know, it's. I like to give things to people. I like to open them up. It's into the light, into happiness, into love, into joy, what we really are.
Yeah.
You know, and that just gels with me. Like somebody who wants to do healing, when they do Reiki and they make people feel better, they get such joy from that because they give in love to that body. Yes? And if they give a reading to somebody and they give them a message, because we're all here to love and to help each other. We've all got the bit of the recipe, a bit of the jigsaw. So when you put your jigsaw next to somebody else, that helps to make a big picture for everybody. But all the pictures are different. Yes? That's how I see it. You know, it's my way of looking at life. You know, it's my... I don't know. It's just, I ponder on things.
Do you think that's what the term Lightworker is?
Yes, a Lightworker is somebody who works with the love, mainly, and works with light and does no harm to anybody. Do no harm. Love thy neighbour as thyself. Love everybody, even the so-called bad people. Because you're not loving what they do, you're loving what they are. And what they are is spirit from God. That's what you're loving. Saying, how can you possibly love that person? How can you make excuses for up them? Because I've been there, you've been there, you've done what they've done. They haven't learnt yet not to do it. You can go through 100 lifetimes just learning not to steal. But if you come through and you never steal, you know, you can't do it. You'd have a conscience about it or lie or whatever. You know that you cracked that. So how dare anybody judge anybody else?
Yeah.
Yes? So you have to allow people to go at their own pace to learn things. You can point things out, but if they don't want to do it and if they haven't opened up to it, you can't make them do it. You can't, you know, what they say about the horse, you need a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You know, this is that sort of thing. All these little sayings are very, very true. We mustn't lose these little sayings, you know, because they're so important, you know, I think, anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
What is education? You educate yourself, really.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you're saying we need to do bad things in order to learn why they're bad?
No, we don't need to do bad things, but if we do bad things, and then you learn not to do the bad things. Like if you're married and you're a bully with your partner and you want everything your own way, and you lose that partner because of it, and you get another partner, and that partner gives you what you've given that partner, then you see and you say, God, I never realised I was doing that much harm. They were telling me, and I really love my first partner, and I wish I hadn't lost them, because this one is terrible, because it's doing to me what I did to them. You know, so you're learning. So if you then finally get back together with the first partner, you will treat that partner completely different, because you've learnt the lesson. Yeah?
So you're kind of creating your own karma, basically.
Yeah. Oh, yes, you create your own karma, yes. But we don't know about karma, so we're very ignorant. We say, well, I didn't know. I mean, you get the born-again Christians. I love them. You meet them, some at Mind Bodies. And they say, well, you won't get to heaven unless you believe in Jesus. You know, so I say, well, okay. So I said, what about all the people who've never even heard of Jesus? Oh, well, they've had it. They're never going to go to heaven. So I said, you've got this God who's created this beautiful heaven, but only a few people can get into this heaven, and they believe in Jesus. I said, but you do realise that Jesus was never a Christian. So when you get there, you'll be with all the Christians, like you, but he won't be there. He'll be with the Essenes, because he was an Essene, he wasn't a Christian.
Right.
So when you get there, you're going to be.
What's an Essene?
He was a Jew, but he was part of a set. Like you've got Christians and Protestants, you've got different sections of a religion, yes. And his was the Essenes, and they were very wonderful people. The Essenes, they were healers. They're very much like we were, yes, and they were good people.
Because I know religion was created after Jesus.
Oh yeah, long way after. Yeah, but very much so. Yes, and of course it's been changed. A lot of the words have been changed and everything. So you have to take that on board. Well, this is human nature, isn't it?
So do you think Jesus himself would have agreed with religion?
I don't think so. I think he, especially going to church. I mean, people go to church for an hour and they do their God bit on a Sunday for an hour. You do your God bit every moment. That's the difference. Because you are God, part of God, and you are creating all the time. And this is what Jesus did. He didn't have a palace. He just had the clothes on his back. He could have created anything, but he didn't. He lived a very simple life. He didn't need all that.
What do you think Jesus did when apparently he went up in the mountains before he came back as an enlightened soul? What do you think he was doing?
Well, what he was doing was he was fasting and what have you. He was tuning in to his higher self and to and he was getting a lot of information by doing that, I believe. I mean, I'm not so much into the Bible because, to be quite honest, the Catholic religion didn't do much with the Bible. It wasn't the Mass and everything. Because when I was there, it was very much, the Latin Mass and everything. It's a lot of change now. I do go to the church now and again because my grandchildren are Catholics, and if they have a ceremony, I go because I do, I'm the grandmother, and I like to support them. So when they do the Mass now, it's completely different. But all it is the priest standing there telling you to stand, sing a song, sit down, say a few prayers. And it's the same thing. You can't sit and talk to the priest and say, what about this, what about that? It's because they don't actually, I don't think they know much. I think they can say a ceremony. And it's a cult. All religions are cults and they don't realise it. So they feel they've got to do it every week. But you could sit under a tree, much better to talk to God or Jesus under a tree, in your own garden. You don't need to go to a church and feed priests with money and things, and especially things like the Vatican. The amount of money that has created and pain and suffering throughout the world. Some of it has been very good, and I mean, it's a beautiful building, but I wouldn't want to go in there. I think I've never wanted to go into there. I don't think I would like it. Because I don't think they're doing it right. But some people get a lot of things from it, and I'm not saying it's wrong to do it. All I'm saying, for me personally, I feel that way. And I would not encourage anybody not to do it, because that's their free choice. Because one of the things on this planet is, this is a planet of free choice. So you are free to do whatever you want. So if you do bad things, then you have to pay for that. When you step out of your body, you will see the pain and suffering that you've caused somebody else, just like the man who created the mafia. And he's doing that throughout the centuries. So that poor man is really seeing a lot. So if you create a war, you imagine all the people that die in a war. So, never mind, just the little things.
And what do you think about the miracles Jesus apparently did? Do you think they were real, or do you think it was over-exaggerated?
No, because we can all do miracles. He said, everything I can do, you can do. And people could see, and they believed, and they could see it. You can create a miracle, and if you don't want to see it, you'll say, oh, it's fraud, that. Oh, I'm not seeing that. They don't want to accept it. But living, every time you breathe is a miracle. Your body is a miracle. It's the most incredible machine. You know, it's so incredible, your body. But we don't appreciate it. So we put crap into it, put rubbish into it. You know, and if you love your body and love whatever shape you are or whatever age you are, love it. Because you've got these beautiful eyes that can see things. You've got a heart that beats. You know, just think how much it beats, the blood around the body. I mean, it's incredible. But you've got to love it. Yes?
Thank you. Okay, so online there's a very big following for the simulation theory.
Right.
I just wondered what your thoughts were on that, and whether, if all this is an illusion or some kind of simulation.
Right, well, what I've, this is what I've got from other people and from books and from being led to it myself. We live in the third dimension. That wall that is over there is it's vibrating in the third dimension. But if you had somebody who's vibrating in the fifth dimension, i.e. an outer worlder, could walk through that wall. And I went to visit a lady once, and she said to me, she said, "Now, I never told anybody this." She said, "But I've got to tell you, this happens all the time with me, because I give messages out to people, so people give me things to pass on to other people." She didn't realise that. So I thought, oh yes, okay. And she said she had these French windows. Now, I met this lady by chance in a restaurant, and she invited me to the Cathar. There was a big gathering of Cathars, and she said, "You were a Cathar." Well, I knew that. And so she invited me, and I stayed the weekend with her. And then she turned around and she said, she was sitting on her own on a Saturday afternoon, everybody was out, and she said, "I looked up at the French windows and I saw a being, half lion and half human, with the most magnificent clothes on. And he walked straight through the glass of the French windows, as if it wasn't there, and stood in front of her and bowed to her and said, I want to talk to you." And she said, he was beautiful. She said, this lion's head, a male. And she just told me the clothes he was wearing. And she said he had this beautiful cloak, golden cloak behind him. And he gave her this stuff, but she said, "I cannot share the stuff that he told me. I'm told that it's not the time for man to know this yet." But she said, "Somehow you need to know that I saw this." Anyway, she said he bowed and he left. And she said, I'm sitting there with my mouth open thinking, my God, isn't that amazing? And the following week, she said, they all went out again, and he came again at the same time, but he brought his lady with him. But this time they had crowns on their heads. And he brought his lady through, and he said the jewellery that they were wearing and what have you. And again, he gave her a lot of messages, and he said, "This is my queen." And he said, "You come from my planet, and this is why we've come here to remind you. And we're giving you, and you've come here to, when the time is right, to give out these messages." This is happening all over the world. That's why they can't stop it, because they don't know about it.
So these multidimensional beings in other states of existence?
They're on other planets, and they're in a different dimension. There's the ascended masters, and they've reached the ascension because you're bringing, each lifetime you come out, you may be at the third or the fourth or the fifth. If you're working with love, you're going to bring yourself up to higher dimensions, right? So when you go to the spirit world, you will go to that dimension, that level. So you will be all with the third dimension people, right? So if you've got people who are creating wars and doing and lying and correct bad things for the planet, they will all be together, They will not be with the people who are not like them. And it won't be very nice. It's not a hell, but it won't be pleasant. But if you've got some people who have devoted their lives to giving healing and doing lovely, wonderful things, good things, then they may go to, say, the 7th level, and they will be with everybody who's with the 7th level. And so you've always got some people in common with you, vibrating at the same time. And so then you look at your life and you think, oh, I didn't quite do very good with that bit. I need to go back down and sort that bit out because I want to get to the next level. But unfortunately, when you come through, you forget. But you know that it's against your nature to do that. So if you do it for greed, and you say, oh, well, I've got to do it because I'm told to do it. But then you get the ones that say, well, I'm not going to do that. I don't care. I can't do it. Sorry, it's against me. I can't do it. Then, they learn not to do it. You've got to learn not to do something wrong. Your conscience, when you're doing something wrong. But, that was one of the experiences I had with that particular lady. And that led up to other things, because that was a stepping stone for something big, which would take a whole video to tell you a particular story that happened to me, which was incredible.
We'll do that video in the future.
Yeah, and that is a long video. But,
Ask is, there is ways in which people are seeing these multidimensional beings.
Yes.
And they're taking a plant medicine called ayahuasca. And when they take this, they see lots of kind of beings, like reptilian beings.
Yeah.
And things like this. And the beings are communicating with them. And a lot of people are kind of confused as to who these beings are.
Exactly.
And this has got something to do with that.
Yes. Well, you've got to be very careful if you do something like that you are ready for it. I personally have never done anything like this. Maybe it'd be interesting to try it, because I would make sure I was protected. When you go into anything like this, you must be very, very careful and be very protected with a golden cloak around you, a pyramid, this sort of thing. I don't go anywhere without protection, but if you work for the love and the light, and do it right, you'll always be protected. Yes, because all the guides around you. You've got a lot of people helping you, and it's, if you could see it, you wouldn't be afraid of anything. The main thing is fear. They control you with fear.
Yeah.
Get rid of the fear, and they can't control you. Put love in its place. You can't beat that.
Would you say that goes for every single entity in the whole of reality?
Yes, because it's the beings, the planets are full of life. And there are. If you went into a cave, the deepest cave, and you went into a dark cave, and there's a pool. There's creatures living in that pool. That's their world. They're part of this planet, but nobody ever sees them, but they're living in that bit of world. So we're all living on this planet, but we're living in different sections of it. The birds are able to fly in the sky. They've got that freedom. It's a fantastic planet if you really study it and appreciate it and look after it.
Universe.
And they envy us because it's beautiful, this planet. It really is. They say it's the jewel in the crown of God's planets. But then there's such a lot of sections to this. There's so many things that I've discovered over this time. But I've done it every day. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Have you yourself spoke to any different entities?
No, I haven't. That's not my sister, different. My sister Mary Rodwell, a fantastic lady. I'm so proud of her, what she does.
She talks about UFOs, doesn't she?
Yes, she's and she's helping the children. She's written 2 books, and the second book is the new human, and it's about the children that are being born here, and it's incredible what these kids are doing. That's why they're giving them machines. They're trying to shut them down, the children, and of course, they're giving them all these injections and things, you know, from babies. You've got a lot against you, but it's a fight over the dark to the light, you know.
And the dark is fear, and the light is love.
Yes, and it's also what they're trying to do in the background, like giving kids injections and saying, I mean, children are getting measles even though they've had the measles injections, you know. I mean, it's a load of rubbish, all of it. They need these diseases, but they put fear into the parents, you know. And of course now they're trying to get it so that you have to have it, otherwise you can't have, you know, benefits, or you can't go to school without it. You know, because they want everybody in that, because they want to stop the children from maturing into the spiritual thing.
Yeah.
Just like they killed off the flipping Native American Indians. You know, it's... but there's only a few of them. There's not many of them. But all you can do is you're responsible for your own spirit. And if you can give love to others and give them some information that might help them to grow themselves... Just like a teacher when she's teaching her class, she's one, and there's lots of students, she's teaching them for their future, so they can learn to read and write. My daughter's a teacher, and she teaches 5-year-olds, and she's a very good teacher, and I'm very, very proud of her. And she's a beautiful soul, is my daughter, if you met her. She's fantastic. And, you know, so she works very hard, and she's all for the children. She brings lots of work home. She's very devoted to the work that she does. And, you know, so this is what we are. We have lots of pupils around us, you know, and if you can... This is what comes to me. People come to me and I give them a few words sometimes. If it changes them to pick up a book or do it, whatever.
So what advice would you give to someone who's going to take these plant medicines and see the other beings? Would you advise give the other beings love? And
Oh, yes.
Show no fear? And
Yes, show no fear.
Show no fear.
Show no fear. Because you are magnificent. You are powerful. You are God, for goodness sake. You know, God isn't frightened. See that? God doesn't... not frightened of anybody. But we're not told we're God. We're told Jesus was God. He was the Son of God. But he said, everything I am, you are. Keep saying that to yourself. This is what he said.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yes, very much. It takes away... It's the magic. When I came into this, I was sat round a table. I knew nothing. And there was a gentleman who was teaching us, and we were all brand new to it. We knew not a thing. And he turned around and he said, the first thing I'd like to say to all of you, he said, I really envy every one of you. I said, you envy us? Why? He said, because you're going to step into the magic. And it's going to blow your mind. And he was so right. Because you're right at the beginning of it. And what you're going to discover, and what you're going to, as you go down your path of discovery, and what you are, is going to just be amazing. And you think winning the lottery would be amazing. It's nothing to what you are going to find it throughout your life. And he was so right. And I feel so privileged that I went across the road to that beautiful lady, and she took me into her little room and she gave me some healing. And there's certain people that you will look back on your life, and you will see where you had those people that were so important, that opened up things, like Winnie, who got me to meet my husband. She's one of them. And that lady is one of the most important people in my life. I only knew her for 5 minutes, didn't know her for long. She moved away. But I will, when I get to the other side and when she comes, I will say, thank you, Winnie. And she says, well, we arranged that before we came, didn't we? And we did it. That's what she will say, because I did arrange to go across the road.
So if the universe presents something to you, do you think you should just take that opportunity?
Yes, especially if it's for the light, yes. Yes, don't ignore it. Even if you ponder over it. Yes, do it. Because that's why when you look at your day, who have I met, what have I seen, and it could be something in the paper, it could be something on the news, whatever. Whatever it is, look at your day and read that day. And what did I get from this?
Yeah.
What did it teach you? Did it teach me not to go there? You know? Or did it teach me to go there? Down which path do I go? You know, you teach a baby not to touch the fire. It will burn them. You know? Some people are like that. They'll teach you not to touch the fire. You know, and it can be, you know, and other people say, you go and do it, you know. It's all right, you're entitled to do that, you're entitled to take that, you know. But no, you're not. It's your conscience. No, I can't do that because it will harm somebody else.
All right.
Do no harm.
Thank you
Yeah.
for that.
You're welcome. So finally, after 6 months, I phoned up because I thought I'll lose my place. And I kept thinking about it every day. I wanted to do it. So I phoned up. And I said, is it all right if I come? And she said, yeah, we've been waiting for you. You ready to come now? And that's how I came into Judith's circle. And very, very powerful. We only did it for 1 day a week to begin with. And then I did it for 2 days eventually. But I was in her circle for 5 years. And the things that happened in that circle was incredible. And what I did was we would sit in circle like that in the dark. We'd hold hands and we'd go, Our Father who art in heaven. And I would go deep. Couldn't move. And those few words, and I'd be wide awake. It was absolutely, you couldn't hear a sound in that room. And every time we came out of the room, it was 9 o'clock, and the clock was chiming 9 o'clock. You couldn't hear it in the room. And sometimes it felt you were in there for hours, and sometimes it felt as if you were there 10 minutes. But we had so many people. We did a lot of rescues. A lot of people have died and they don't know they're dead. You know, and they're frightened of death because they're going to get hell through the religions. The religions do so much harm when they teach this rubbish. And, you know, so they don't know to go to the light. But
So you're suggesting when people pass over, they can create their own reality there as well?
no, you can, if you're frightened, you won't go to the light. You won't go because you think you're going to go to hell. Because you don't. Everybody thinks, I'm not perfect, I'm not going to go to heaven, I'm going to go to hell. So they get trapped here. You know, and that's why you see ghosts and things. And, you know, so, I mean, there was a child, a little boy came to us. He must have been about 3 or 4. And Judith, you know, she talks like the little child. You know, her voice changes. She can, and all sorts of things. And this little boy came to us and he said, I can't find my mummy. I can't find my mummy. And Judith can see all this because she's a medium who wants to see everything. And she told us afterwards, she said, I could see this little boy on the beach. And he'd gone into the sea and his mama had told him not to do it. And he ran off and went in the sea and got drowned. And he sees himself in the sea. He sees his body being picked up. He's out of his body. He watched the ambulance come and his mummy's crying. But he can't go in the ambulance. And he sees the ambulance go and it's got to night time and all the people have left the beach and he's walking up and down on his own. And he doesn't know what to do. He's confused. His little soul is like that. And so they sent him to our circle. His guides sent him to the circle through Judith. And we asked the angels and Jesus to come for him. And she saw him being picked up and taken to the light. Otherwise, he would be on that beach even today. So there are so many souls that need rescuing around the planet, especially if you're soldiers. You know, a lot of soldiers need to be rescued. So it's amazing the work that these people do, and that's their job too. They're rescuers. A lot of people put crystals all over the planet, you know, opening up the ley lines and things. And they go all around the world doing that. So this is their job and this is what they're doing. And they come together to do a certain job. And we went together in that circle to do, you know, we had Outer Worlders come. And, but we had also philosophers. I mean, one day there was one person in the group as well, in Judith's group, and he channeled. Now, he had a very soft voice. You could hardly hear him. But one day he came out and his voice was so loud, it was like a giant, and the whole room shook. And I nearly came out of my body. I mean, it was so... I was shaking all over with this voice. And all it said was, "I am Hercules." How he didn't break his voice box, I don't know. But it was amazing. But it was just to show that what we are capable of. Yes? And it didn't hurt his voice or anything. But that was amazing. That was one. But one day we went in, because a lot of people, you know, and she does herself, you know, she wanted proof all the time. But I never questioned it, because I just had a knowing that she was genuine. But some people do question it, and but they asked for proof. And one night what happened was it was 80 degrees all day. It was boiling hot, and it was still very hot in the evening. And the sun was on that room, on the wall. Even though she blacked it out, it was boiling hot inside that room. And because the wall was hot when you touched the wall with the sun, from the sun. And we walked into the room, and it was freezing. You could see your breath. It was so cold, you couldn't believe it. Now, you can make a room hot, but you can't make it cold. And we were shivering, and we could see our breath. And I said, "My God, what's happening here?" And we sat down, and this outer worlder came, and he said, "What's the matter with all of you people, you beautiful souls?" And we said, "Well, we're cold. We've got T-shirts on, you know, and summer dresses. We're so cold." And they said, you humans are so primitive. You don't even know how to use your bodies." They said, "Don't you know that you can heat your bodies? You don't need heat in your houses. You can heat your bodies and you can cool them right down." He said, "How do you think the native Canadian Indians lived in teepees in the weather that they have over in Canada? They knew how to build a fire in their bellies. They could heat their bodies."
Really?
Yes, really. But we don't know how to do it. We need to learn how to do this. We're so primitive. And they said, "And you're still killing each other. Why are you killing each other on planet Earth? Why do you have so much hate for each other? Grow up. Time to grow up. Time to stop being children. Because you are creator gods." And that really told us off. And when they left, within seconds it got boiling hot. They sucked all that cold out of that room. It was amazing. I've never forgotten it. And it proved to Jews. I said, "Now, why do you need proof? Look at that." Because it was so cold. And yet we warmed right up. It got up to 80 degrees again there in that room. It was so hot. Because it had built the heat up. You know, it built up the heat in the room, you know, normally. Even though she blacked it out when you had the sun on that wall. So that one was amazing. And another one which stood out with me was this man came to us from way, way back, probably 2,000, 3,000 years ago, a long time ago. And he came and he said, I've been sent to you." He said, "I wonder if you can help us. Help me." And we said, "Why? What's happened to you?" And he says, "Well," he said, "when I was on the earth plane," he said, "I never loved anything. Anything." He said, I couldn't feel love for anything. And he said, I didn't love myself at all. And I went through a lifetime of hatred. And when I stepped out of my body, I'm in this dark room. But I'm so stubborn, I don't want this love. I don't want to experience it. So I'm stuck here. And I've got shadows here, and they're trying to get me out of the room, but I'm so stubborn I won't go because I don't want to say I'm wrong because of ego. And I've been stuck there for a long time. And Judith can see this because she tells us afterwards what happened, what she sees. And then so we said, well, we said, do you now want to come out of the room? And he said, yes, I do. I'm now, I've had enough. So we said, right, well, what you need to do is to find some light. Can you see any light? I can't see any light. He said, no way. I said, look, maybe in the corner there's a light, little sparkle of light, and it will get bigger. No. Well, we tried for about 10 minutes to be with this man. And in the end, we said, look, we're going to have to stop this. We're going to stop this. We're going to tune into Jesus. We're going to say the Lord's Prayer and see if we can get back to you. This is what we did, and we asked Jesus to come and get him. Then we went back into it, and then Jesus came and he saw the light, and he took him to the light, took him out of that room. And when Jesus came back, she said, what I saw was this dark room, and after you said the Lord's Prayer and you went back again, there were little sparks of light in the room, like stardust. And he said, and all of a sudden in the corner there was this light, and the doorway opened, and Jesus was there, and he came and took him and lifted him up and took him to the light. So, and that was quite something that night, that we rescued that poor man that had been there. So how many souls are stuck for thousands of years in you don't realise when you're on this plane that everything you do, every thought is record. You have a record of it. Mm-hmm. So treat each moment as if you're going to die in a second. Be ready for it. Because a group of kids went to Manchester to a concert, and they were killed by a bomb, a young man that came in with a bomb. Those kids were full of life, and 1 minute they were here, 1 minute they were not here. And you never know when that's going to happen. You can cross the road and it can happen. So always be ready, and that's what they teach us a lot. Always be ready to step out of your body, because you never know when it's going to happen. And that is so true. So once you know that, and if you believe it, and you live like that, you will live a good life.
Wow. Thank you.
Right. At the moment, what is happening at the moment, big time, is they need the fear to control you, right? So one of the big things that are giving you the fear is climate change, or global warming, or freezing, whatever. Now, what is happening is natural, and the climate has always changed, and this young lady called Greta, when I first saw her sitting outside on her own with this little sign, saying that she was concerned about the planet and what was happening, I thought, God, look at that child, how fantastic that she's doing that. But what has happened is I think they're using her to bring fear to the children. And of course, she's come along and she's got the children to come out on a Friday from not going to school. They're walking through places like London and all over the place saying, we're going to die in 12 years' time. This is ridiculous. This is not going to happen. But you see, all that fear of the children is going into the atmosphere, and they can control you with that. And we've learnt this, that they need to control you by fear. I mean, when they create a war, they give you fear. Look at this Brexit thing. It's all, if you come out of Europe, this can happen, that can happen. It could. Say one little word, could. When it doesn't happen, they said, well, we only said could, but you missed the could after a while. We keep mentioning could.
It's like when there's a sale and it will say up to 50%
yes.
off.
Yeah, that's the mind control bit, the could. Yeah. And then they drop that one, and then they put something else in its place. And this is what they're doing with the climate change. And if you want to know what's happening with the climate change, follow the money. Who's making a lot of money with it? I mean, if they're that concerned about the climate change, we can have free energy. We don't need all this nuclear and all that sort of thing, because Nikola Tesla gave us free energy. You can have cars that run on water. We don't need the oil, so you don't need to have to fight for it. you know, in different countries. It's all to do with big money. And, you know, it's once you start seeing and reading what they're doing, it's like all of a sudden you can see through, you know, it's like, well, for instance, my son, Peter, when he went to France, he had to learn French. And it took him a long time to learn French. But one day he came home and he said, you know, Mum, I can now speak French. I said, well, you've been speaking French for a while. No, he said, I didn't speak French until I wasn't put each word with English. He said, now I'm speaking and I don't think of the English. Now I'm fluent in French. And once he could do that, and it's a bit like when you drive a car, you know, when you first get in and you've passed your test, you're thinking of your legs and you look in there and, you know, you're thinking of the drive all the way. You know, but now, after thousands of times of doing it, you don't even think about it. You just automatically do it. That's when you become a driver. That's when you really are, you know. So it's like that with life. And so it's just don't have the fear. Don't fall for it, people. Really don't fall for it, because you're being controlled to go down a certain avenue. Just like a farmer with his sheep will put the sheep into the pen. He uses a dog to, you know, he just whistles to the dog and the dog takes the sheep and pushes it into a pen. There's only one dog. Why did the sheep let the dog do that? We do that. They don't need many people to control us. Hardly any.
There's only one black sheep.
Yes. And the thing is that don't be sheep. It's time to stop being like that. And grow up, like the outer world has said to us, grow up, humans.
So why are they trying to control us, do you think?
Well, because they want to keep it's for money and power. They want to have the good life, so-called. And they want you working like slaves without chains. That's why you go to school. You go to school to learn a lot of stuff that you don't even need. You know? And yet you get somebody, I mean, for example, you know, James Martin, you know, he has become very, very wealthy through doing cooking. But he didn't need to know about geography. If he's interested in geography, he can go on the internet and find anything about geography or history. But if he'd have been at school and been taught for cooking and all about flavours and spices and all that, he would have been in his element. He would have loved it. You know, so if they take the children and they find out what that child is interested in, right, if they're artists, let them do art. You know, they don't need to do physics and what have you. So we put all this pressure on the kids to pass exams, which gets them all, they're very unhappy doing this, you know, and what a waste of their childhood when they should be playing out in the sunshine, a lot of them. You know, we ruin children's lives going to school, learning a lot of stuff that they'll never need. The whole system is wrong. And then they take the students that go to university and steal all the money off them, make them pay all this money back. You know, and...
They make plants illegal as well.
Yeah.
Cannabis,
Well, of course, the drugs and everything, they don't want you to know about that.
do you think that is?
Yes. Well, the main thing with that particular plant is because it heals you. And they don't want you to know about it. That's the main thing. And then, of course, it does 200 other things. This is hemp, of course. It's the most incredible plant on this planet. And it makes clothes. Terry Waite, who was, I believe, I've heard this, I don't know whether it's true, but apparently he has a house and everything is hemp in his house, apart from his cooker and things. But his carpets, the house itself is made from hemp. And apparently his bedding, his bed, his furniture, everything is hemp. You know, because I think he believed in it. I'm sure I've got the right name. I may apologise if I haven't. But it does make sense to me that you can do that. And
Do you think every natural thing on the earth is here for a reason?
yes, and it's here to help us. To build our houses, for our food, for our medicine. And Mother Earth doesn't cheat you. When you put a carrot in the ground, and you know a seed of the carrot, it comes up as a carrot. It doesn't come up as a potato. You know, she doesn't cheat you. She doesn't lie. And have you ever thought, I mean, I thought one day, if you took 12 crocus bulbs and the first day of the month you put a crocus bulb into a certain part of the earth in your garden all together, what happens to all those crocus bulbs? You put them in different times of the year. What happens to them? They all come up at the same time when they're supposed to come up. They won't come up in August. They won't come up in another... They will come up when they're supposed to, because the earth is at the right temperature, the sun is the right temperature. And, so if we were to follow the natural things like that we, like if you put cigarette smoke into your body, it's not going to do you any good. But this is what we do. The crocus bulb is so intelligent that it comes up at the right time and it doesn't do anything wrong. We're the ones that do the wrong, and yet we think we're so bright. We're not. We've got to stop being what we are, and yet we're still creator gods because we're allowing ourselves to go down the dark path of things rather than the light.
Yeah. We've got alcohol as one of the
alcohol
drugs at the moment.
Yeah.
It's also the most dangerous drug, and that's being promoted still.
Well, one of the things that I would like to say is I'm 80 years old, and I've never taken a drug from the doctors for quite a long time, for at least 50 years. Before then, I didn't know all this, but something told me not to. I never took the pill. I never took the patches when they came out, and I had very little. It was only tiny because I was never ill, hardly. But I've never taken that, so I never had any side effects. So I don't bring a box out every night at my age. I started with one tablet, which gave me side effects to another. And the amount of people that do that at my age, that I haven't cost the National Health Service anything, because I'm never ill. I've got arthritis. That's all. I don't take headache pills or anything. I just don't do it. But I do take vitamins, lots of vitamins. I am, very lot of pain. I can't do a lot of things because of my arthritis. And I'm quite handicapped, but I don't get ill. I haven't had a headache for at least 50 years. And I don't spend money on that. But the money I do spend is on good vitamins. And I was very fortunate one day because I met a gentleman called Philip Day. And we went to his talk. And he knows all about the vitamins and everything. And he gives talks. He's the most marvellous man. And he goes all around the world talking. And when he goes to Australia, he can get 10,000 people go to see him. When he comes to England, he gets about 25 to 30 people see him, because we don't talk about it on the television. We're very ignorant in this country about things like that. But my advice to most people, if you can avoid taking drugs that will give you side effects, try and find an alternative of medicine from the planet, because it's all out there. Yeah. A native Canadian Indian said to a lady once, "We don't pass on to the next generation something that doesn't work." Wise words. And the great creator, which is God, has created all the medicine on this planet. Yes.
Thank you